It started with a parking ticket. Not the kind you get from the police, but the kind you get from a machine. I remember the smell of cold concrete and exhaust fumes, the low hum of a distant generator, and the way the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a sickly greenish tint on everything. I was in the gateway ramp, this multi-level parking garage right in the heart of downtown Minneapolis. It was a Tuesday, I think. Yeah, a Tuesday, because I'd just come from a brutally boring meeting with a client who thought brand synergy was a real, tangible thing. I was with Chloe from the creative department. She was the art director on the project, and we'd carpooled from the office in St. Louis Park to save the company a few bucks on parking. God, Chloe. Just thinking about her now makes my skin prickle for a different reason. She had this way of walking that was pure distraction, a slow, confident sway of her hips in those tight, dark-washed jeans that looked like they'd been painted on. Her top was a simple black V-neck, but the way it clung to her chest, the soft curve of her breasts shifting with each step, made it impossible to look away. I'd been nursing a low-grade, completely inappropriate crush on her for months. She was dating some finance guy who probably wore boat shoes unironically, but in the confined, echoing space of that parking garage, it was just us.
Remind me why we didn't just expense an Uber, she asked, her voice bouncing off the concrete pillars. She hugged her leather portfolio to her chest, a gesture that only accentuated the shape of her body. Because Peterson is a cheap bastard who audits our TUE reports with a magnifying glass, I said, fishing my keys out of my pocket. The jingle was unnaturally loud in the stillness. Besides, it's just a parking garage.
She gave a little shiver, rubbing her bare arms. This one gives me the creeps. It's so empty. She was right. For a Tuesday afternoon, the place was a tomb. Our footsteps echoed in a way that suggested vast empty spaces, and the usual distant sounds of the city were completely muted, swallowed by the layers of concrete. We were on level 4, and my beat-up Honda Civic was one of only 3 cars in the entire section. The other 2 were a dusty minivan and a pickup truck with a flat tire, both looking like they'd been abandoned for weeks. We reached the payment machine. It was one of those old, boxy models, beige and scuffed, with a small green screen and a slot for your ticket. A dim light glowed behind the buttons. All right, let's get out of here, I said, pulling the crumpled ticket from my jeans pocket. I smoothed it out and fed it into the slot. The machine whirred, gears grinding with a sound like chewing gravel. The green screen flickered, then displayed the amount, $12. $12 for 3 hours, Chloe muttered, leaning against the machine. Highway robbery. She was close enough that I could smell her perfume, something light and floral, a stark contrast to the oily metallic stink of the garage. I caught myself staring at the delicate line of her jaw, the way her glossy lower lip stuck out just a bit in a pout. My eyes drifted down to the strip of tanned, smooth skin exposed between the hem of her top and the waistband of her jeans. I had a sudden vivid image of pressing my hand against that small of her back, feeling the warmth of her skin. I shook my head, trying to dispel the thought that it was the wrong time, the wrong place. The silence was getting to me. I slid my credit card into the reader. A red light blinked. Error. The screen flashed. I tried again. Same thing. Oh, for fuck's sake. I sighed. I pulled out my card and tried another. Error. Maybe it's cash only? Chloe suggested that I check the machine. There was no sticker indicating that I only had a $5 bill in my wallet. Shit, I don't have enough cash. Just then, the machine made a different sound. A high-pitched whine, like a dying printer. It spat my ticket back out. I grabbed it, assuming it was just rejecting me, but then it started printing something else. A long, narrow slip of paper, like a receipt, began to slowly emerge from a slot I hadn't even noticed. What's that? Chloe asked, peering closer. No idea. The paper kept coming, an absurdly long strip for a simple parking transaction. Finally, it stopped. I tore it off. The green screen went blank. The machine was dead. I looked down at the paper. It wasn't a receipt. At the top, in faint matrix font, it read, Gateway Ramp Transaction Complete. Below that, instead of a price or a time stamp, there was a single line of numbers. 47302. That was it, just those 6 digits. No decimal, no $sign, no explanation. What the hell is that? Chloe said, leaning in. Her shoulder brushed against my arm, and a jolt, part electricity, part guilt, went through me. Her perfume was stronger now, clouding my senses. I have no clue. Some kind of system error? I turned the slip over. Blank. Weird. Well, the gate's probably up. Let's go. We walked back towards my car. The silence felt heavier now, more intentional. Our footsteps seemed to be the only sound in the entire universe. Asterisk clack. Clack, scuff, clack. Asterisk Chloe's boot heels and my worn-out sneakers that I found myself counting them, a nervous habit. Asterisk 1, 2, 3. Asterisk we reached the car. I unlocked it and we got in. The interior was stiflingly hot from sitting in the sun that filtered through the grimy skylights. As Chloe slid into the passenger seat, her jeans tightened across her thighs, and I had to force my eyes away, focusing instead on jamming the key into the ignition. The engine turned over with a reassuring rumble. I drove down the ramps, the tires squealing on the tight turns. Level 3 was just as empty as Level 4. So was Level 2. It was unnerving. Where was everyone? Downtown Minneapolis wasn't New York, but it wasn't a ghost town either. We approached the exit gate. It was down. Of course it was. Damn it, I muttered. I pulled up to the ticket reader and pressed the button. Nothing happened. No intercom, no voice. I rolled down my window and waved the strange slip of paper with the number on it in front of the sensor. Nothing. Try the other ticket, Chloe said, the original one. I fished the original crumpled parking ticket out of my pocket and waved that. Still nothing. The gate remained obstinately closed. Are you kidding me? I slammed my palm against the steering wheel. The horn gave a weak, pathetic bleat that was swallowed by the concrete. That's when I saw him. A man, standing about 50 yards away, near the entrance to the stairwell on level 1. He was just standing there. He was tall and painfully thin, wearing a long dark gray coat that seemed too heavy for the mild fall weather. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets. He wasn't looking at us, not directly. His head was tilted down, as if studying the oil-stained concrete at his feet. But I got the undeniable feeling that he was aware of us, that he had been waiting for us. Who's that? Chloe whispered, her voice tight. Security maybe? I said, but it didn't feel right. He didn't have the uniform, the bored posture. He had an intensity about him, even in his stillness. I decided to get out. Stay here, I said to Chloe. Like hell I will, she replied, already opening her door. She wasn't the type to be left behind. I didn't argue. Having her close felt better, even with the confusing buzz of attraction humming under my skin. As she stood up, the sun from the exit cut through the gloom and caught the honey blonde highlights in her hair. I watched the muscles in her calves flex as she walked around the front of the car to stand beside me. We approached the man together. With each step, the details of him became clearer. His coat was shabby, worn at the cuffs. His hair was a nondescript brown, lank and needing a wash. His face was pale and gaunt, all sharp angles and deep shadows under his cheekbones. He couldn't have been older than 40, but he carried a weariness that seemed ancient. He still didn't look up as we stopped a polite distance away. Excuse me, I said. My voice was too loud. The gate's not opening. I asked, there another way out? Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes were the palest blue I had ever seen, almost gray like chips of ice. They didn't blink. They moved from me to Chloe, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his thin lips. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone recognizing a specimen under a microscope. His gaze lingered on Chloe. I saw his eyes travel down her body, from her face, over her chest, down to her legs, and back up. It was a clinical, appraising look, devoid of the messy lust I was feeling. It was colder. It made my stomach clench. The machine gave you a number, he said. His voice was a dry rasp, like pages turning in an old book. I froze. How could he know that? We'd just come from the machine. He'd been down here the whole time. Yeah, I said, holding up the slip of paper. It did. What is it? He took a step forward. He moved without a sound. No rustle of fabric, no scuff of shoe leather. It was deeply wrong. Chloe instinctively moved closer to me, her arm brushing against mine. I could feel the heat of her body through my shirt. It's your steps, he said, his ice-chip eyes fixed on mine. My steps. The number of steps you have left, he clarified, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Before you die. A cold laugh burst out of me. That it was a harsh, nervous sound. Right, very funny. Look, is there a button to open the gate or not? He didn't answer my question. His gaze shifted back to the slip in my hand. 47,302. It's a generous amount, you must be young. He said it without a trace of humor. Chloe's hand found mine and squeezed. Her fingers were cold. Let's just go back to the car, Mark, she whispered, using my name for the first time that day. That it sounded intimate in her mouth, a small anchor in a suddenly tilting world. The man's smile widened a fraction. You should count them. That it would be ashamed to waste a single one. He then turned, his gray coat swirling around his ankles without a sound, and walked towards the stairwell door. That he didn't open it. That he simply vanished. One moment he was there, a solid figure in the dim light, and the next, the space where he'd been was empty. The stairwell door remained closed. A profound silence descended. The hum of my car's engine, which I hadn't even realized I could hear, was gone. The distant city sounds were still absent. That it was a vacuum. Did you see that? Chloe breathed, her voice trembling. He just disappeared. I couldn't speak. My heart was hammering against my ribs. That I looked down at the slip of paper. *** 47,302. ***. The numbers seemed to pulse, to burn themselves into my retina. It's a prank, I said, my own voice shaky. Some asshole with a projector or something. A stupid viral marketing thing. I was trying to convince myself. We ran back to the car. I got in, my hands fumbling with the keys. I turned the ignition. Nothing. Not a click, not a sputter. The dashboard was dark, dead. No, I muttered, turning the key again and again. Panic was starting to set in, a cold, greasy feeling in my gut. Chloe was staring out the windshield, her face pale. Mark, she said softly, the gate. I looked up. The red and white arm of the exit gate was rising. Slowly, smoothly, and completely on its own. There was no one there. No mechanism whirring. It was just going up. I didn't think. I slammed the car into neutral. Push! I yelled. We both scrambled out and put our shoulders against the driver's side door frame. The car was heavy, but on the slight downward slope of the ramp, it began to roll. The concrete was gritty under my shoes. I pushed, my muscles straining, my mind screaming. I was acutely aware of Chloe beside me, the grunt of effort she made, the way her body strained. My eyes dropped to the back of her legs, to the delicate tendons in her ankles above her boots. The inappropriate thought flashed through my mind again. How vulnerable that part of her looked, how easy it would be to reach out and touch. The car picked up speed, rolling through the now open gate and out onto the sun-drenched street. The noise of the city hit us like a physical blow. Honking horns, the rumble of a bus, people talking on phones. It was overwhelming. The car rolled to a gentle stop against the curb. I stood there, panting, sweat cooling on my forehead. People on the sidewalk were giving us strange looks. A woman in a business suit frowned as she hurried past. We're out, Chloe said, her voice full of disbelief. She leaned against the car, her chest heaving, the neckline of her top gaped slightly, and I saw the smooth, tan skin of her collarbone, the delicate hollow at the base of her throat. A surge of desire, sharp and shameful, mixed with the residual terror. My body was reacting to the adrenaline, to her proximity, to the sheer weirdness of it all in the most primal way. I looked back at the gateway ramp entrance. It was just a dark mouth in a concrete wall. The gate was down again. Everything looked normal. Let's just go, I said, my voice hoarse. We got back in the car. This time when I turned the key, the engine roared to life as if nothing had ever been wrong. I pulled into traffic, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I drove in silence for several blocks, the normalcy of the city outside the windows feeling like a lie. What was that, Mark? Chloe asked finally. She had her knees drawn up on the seat, her arms wrapped around them. It was a childish posture that made her look younger, more vulnerable. I couldn't stop looking at the strip of bare skin between her sock and the hem of her jeans. I don't know, I said. But it's over. We're out. I dropped her off at her apartment building in Uptown. She got out without saying much, just a quick, "See you tomorrow," before hurrying inside. I watched her go, my eyes glued to the sway of her hips until she disappeared through the glass doors. Then I was alone. I drove home to my quiet studio in Linden Hills, the events of the afternoon replaying in my head on a loop. The empty garage, the broken machine. The slip of paper. The man, his words. Asterisk the number of steps you have left before you die. Star. It was insane that it had to be a coordinated hoax. But the dead car? The gate opening by itself? His disappearance? I pulled the slip of paper from my pocket and laid it on my kitchen counter. Asterisk 47302. Asterisk I stared at it that it was just a number. A random, meaningless sequence generated by a glitchy machine. But what if it wasn't? The thought was a worm, burrowing into my brain. That I tried to shake it off. That I made dinner, watched some TV, but I couldn't concentrate. Every time I got up for a glass of water or to use the bathroom, I was acutely aware of my footsteps, the soft thud of my socks on the hardwood floor. Asterisk 1.2.3, star. I went to bed late, but sleep wouldn't come. That I lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of my apartment, the refrigerator clicking on, the faint groan of the pipes in the wall, and underneath it all, a new, terrifying sound, the silent, internal counting of my own steps. The next day at work was strained. Chloe was polite but distant. She avoided my eyes, busying herself with her computer screen. The easy, flirtatious tension that had always been between us was gone, replaced by a shared, unspoken dread. That I tried to focus on layouts and copy, but my mind kept drifting back to the garage. To the number. At lunch, I went for a walk alone, just to clear my head. That I found myself on Nicollet Mall, surrounded by people, and I started counting. Not consciously. At first that it was just a background tally in my mind. Asterisk step 127. Step 128. Asterisk I'd walk from my office building to the sandwich shop and back, a distance I'd walked 100 times before, and now it was reduced to a dwindling resource. Asterisk step 419. Step 420, star. I pulled out the slip of paper. Asterisk 47302. Asterisk I had taken 793 steps since leaving the garage yesterday, including the walk to and from my car this morning. I'd done the math in a frantic, early morning calculation. 47, 302793 equals 46, 509. I had 46,509 steps left to live. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. This was crazy. I was literally driving myself insane over a piece of paper from a broken machine. But the memory of the man in the gray coat was